Hi, I'm David Hazard, founder of Ascent, an international coaching program for authors. I'm here today to talk with one of my authors, Sharon Rainey, about her book, Making a Pearl from the Grit of Life. Sharon, I love your book. It's a beautifully written memoir, Making a Pearl from the Grit of Life. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, loved writing all my life and really felt the need to tell my story from the perspective of I'd had several things that probably weren't too great that had happened to me in life, and I'd been able to make it through. And I was of the mindset that if I could make it through, anybody could. And some people who'd heard my story were sort of astounded to find out some of the things that had happened to me and things I'd struggled with, and they kind of wanted to know, how did you do it? How did you get through those tough times? So I just felt it was an appropriate avenue for me to share what happened and how I got through it and where I am now.
Sharon, it amazes me to hear you talk about the experiences of your past, because now you're a very successful businesswoman. You've been honored by the state of Virginia, I should say the Commonwealth of Virginia, pardon me, for the good work that you do in terms of not only your business, but serving, having programs that help to serve servicemen. So tell us briefly about those early experiences. What did you write about in your book?
Well, I talked about I was molested by a minister early on, and also dealt with an abusive marriage that I was able to get out of successfully, and also dealt with depression throughout my life, which I still believe there's a strong genetic component there, and also dealing with addiction and overcoming that, and how to get sober and stay sober.
Thinking through the story as you related it to me and as you tell it in this book, you started out in a good family, in an affluent community, and you found yourself in some pretty dark places. What was the low point? Where were you? And tell us about that experience where you felt that where the turning point really happened, when you hit your lowest ebb.
I think the lowest point for me was I did grow up in a great household, was loved, wanted, but I just always felt there was something wrong with me, and there was a big black hole inside of me. And I think some of that was addiction and some of it was depression, but I just couldn't seem to fix myself. And probably the turning moment for me was in the middle of that abusive marriage. I was with my then husband, and he wanted me to stay in the house. We were having an argument, and I wanted to leave, and he tried to prevent me from leaving. And I wrangled free from him and got outside the house. We were living in a foreign country at the time, and I just remember standing out there in the yard, and a little voice said to me, "If you go back in that house, you will never come back out." And that was the moment that I knew I needed to change quite a few things in my life, and started the process of leaving that marriage, and also actually a few weeks later of getting sober as well.
I remember you telling me during our coaching time when you were developing the book that you said something pretty succinctly that has always stuck with me. You said, "I realized that if I had made the choices that got me to this point, this low point, that I could then make other choices that would help me get back up and out of where I was." I think that's a profound realization for people when we realize, and all of us have certain moments or times in our life where we wonder, how did I get here? But the wake-up call that we actually made the choices that got us there. Tell us about some of the choices that you began to make from that turning point moment that moved you back up to the successful business person, wife, and mother that you are today.
That is interesting, because a lot of people who know me now and don't know what I was like 20 years ago are somewhat astounded by the changes in me, and really almost have a hard time making that connection of who I was then and who I am now. I think I learned the importance of family and friends and people who wanted the best for me and didn't have other issues at hand or their own things that they wanted to control within me. I learned that I was a valuable person and that I needed to be respected and honored in all ways, and that I was worthy of that. I learned to follow directions from those who loved and cared about me, but I also learned that I could, take a look at options and say what's best for me. And sometimes it didn't always agree with those around me, but I learned to just find out what fit Sharon best and what was going to help Sharon grow and be the person that I think God wanted me to be.
So would you say that you learned really how to balance getting good advice and trusting wisdom and guidance in general from other people, but also the way that you have to apply that guidance or that understanding of life really has to come from, I guess, your life, how you're experiencing your life. Is that somewhat accurate?
I think so, because it doesn't fit for what fits for one person doesn't fit for everybody else. I mean, my parents lovingly refer to me as their flower child. I'm the wild one. I'm the one who's sort of carefree and less structured, I think is probably the best word. And so, for a long time I took that as a criticism. And now I actually love that description because it does fit me. I am the flower child of that family. And so I think it's a balance, but I think it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of listening. And I think I spent so much time trying to numb whatever pain or longing that I had that I wasn't listening to what I think those who loved me were trying to offer me. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned. The answer to everything is love and forgiveness.
Beautiful.
And if we can know those two things in our heart and practice those on a daily basis, it's all going to be okay.
Beautiful. Who do you think will benefit most from reading Making a Pearl from the Grid of Life?
I think anybody who struggled with any kind of crisis in their life. I clearly remember saying things like, I want to change, but I don't know how. And I try to give some actually tangible ways of changing in there. Anybody who has dealt with depression, anybody who has dealt with an abusive relationship and trying to get out of it, and again, anybody dealing with addiction and trying to get sober and stay sober.
Did you make any unusual discoveries as you were writing Making a Pearl?
Well, I think as most writers will tell you, it's a very cathartic experience, and it was for me. It took a little bit longer than I thought it would to write it because when I started it, I actually wasn't ready to finish it. My story hadn't finished yet for that part. So it took me a little while, but I think what I learned the most was you don't have to have a million friends. You just need a few, and those friends will do anything for you at any time of day, no matter what, and they won't ask you why. And I've just been given the gift of being able to choose my loved ones and just have that circle around me, and that's probably been the biggest gift, is learning what real friendship and real love means, and to just surround myself with that.
Wonderful. Did you experience any kind of personal change while you were working on the book?
I think I became a much more freer person, even, for the flower child. I ended up getting a tattoo during this process, which, of course, I never liked tattoos during earlier in my life, but it was just a real freeing experience. And as you can tell, I have a little strand of pink hair now, which I do just for fun. And 20 years ago, I was a school teacher and couldn't imagine why anyone would want to miss a day of school. I was so rigid. And I think, I think writing the book just really sort of just freed me up. I think I'm less judgmental than I used to be, and I think I'm just more accepting of people, of who they are and how they are.
What would you like your readers to take away from this book?
There's a way out. There's a way out, and there's a way to the source. There's a way out of abuse, out of depression, out of addiction, and that life really can be incredible. If I had given myself only what I had hoped for 20 years ago, I would have fallen far short of what I've been given. The gifts are just tremendous and overwhelming sometimes when I think about it. But my life is rich, it's simple, and I wouldn't change a thing. And I know in the end, no matter what comes in the future, it's all going to be okay. And I'm going to be surrounded by those who love me.
Well, Sharon, I am certainly very happy that you came through and out of the experiences of your earlier life, and that you have brought out really wonderful truths, lived truths, that have a great deal of value. And very happy with the success that you have today, as I said, as a businesswoman, a wife and mother. And I want to touch just for a moment on a second book that you have in the works. We have the cover here for a book that Sharon is writing now with Dr. Robert Mosiani, who is a specialist in the area of treating Lyme disease. This book obviously is Lyme Savvy, still in the writing. Just for a moment, tell me about your experience with, you have been diagnosed with Lyme disease.
I was, in fact, in the middle of writing Making a Pearl from the Grid of Life is when I was diagnosed and have been in treatment for 3.5 years. I'm beating it, which a lot of Lyme patients can't say. I had an aunt who died of Lyme disease complications back in 2002. It's a very difficult disease. It comes in many shapes and forms and sizes, and there are many, many people suffering out there. And I believe that my physician has found some ways that have truly worked miracles. I really believe he saved my life, and he has treated many of my family members and many friends very successfully. And so I just feel it's really my obligation to share what I've learned in this journey about Lyme disease with others in hopes that they can get on the road to recovery as well.
Well, Sharon, we're going to save what you have learned and what Dr. Mosiani has learned about treating people with Lyme for another interview at another time. And so, best of luck completing your book.
Thank you.
I know that many people out there will benefit from that experience of your life and what you and this wonderful, very successful doctor have learned about helping people with Lyme disease. So I look forward to interviewing you again sometime soon.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here today to talk about Making a Pearl from the Grid of Life.
Thank you for having me.
This is David Hazard, founder of Ascent. I've been here today talking with Sharon Rainey, one of my authors, author of the book Making a Pearl from the Grid of Life. If you have need of coaching services while you're developing your book, if you have need of services to develop the cover or page designs of your book or web design as an author, please find us on the web at www.itsyourlifebethere.com.